But for me, the thing that is super important to start and frame up this morning is once that's all figured out, once those pipes are in play, the reality is what we fill that information with becomes the variable of what happens. There is just an incredible amount of conversation around technology infrastructure without understanding that every time this happens, whether it's the printing press, whether it's television, whether it's film, inevitably the more important part comes along, which is what's the content that fills it. When you look at the sheer amount of attention that Armenians put every single day into Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram alone, if you look at the sheer amount of content consumed in this country on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram alone, the ability for somebody to make what they want to happen, sell an idea, a pair of sneakers, a SaaS infrastructure, whatever you're up to in this audience, the ability to actually achieve that in the current ecosystem is remarkably high, yet every day people let that opportunity pass by not understanding the two core functionalities of what it takes to be successful, in my opinion today in the macro, which is, do you know how to spend media money on these platforms? And more importantly, do you have the capabilities to produce contextual content at scale? What works on Facebook as a video and with its copy acts very differently than if you put that same video on YouTube, acts very differently than if you put that video on IG, acts very differently. You know, one of the more interesting arbitrage opportunities in this country is Twitter. Though Twitter is not at the same usage, the supply and demand of people not producing content for it against how many do consume Twitter in the country and the region is very high, leaving a huge opportunity for many in this hall to be able to produce on that platform. I would argue that if you have any ambition or company at size, you must today, in the 2020 world, be producing 20 to 100 pieces of content a day. And when I think about how, when I audit big businesses, small businesses, entrepreneurs, the amount of content produced is extremely low, and more importantly, the far majority of content that people put out, they put out the same piece of content across every platform, completely disrespecting the end consumer, the way she or he wants to consume content, and most importantly, not taking advantage of the platform's nuances. If you really take a step back and pay attention to what's happening in the world, both on the political, private sector, Fortune 1000, and entrepreneur level, enormous growth has happened from the individuals and organizations who have bought in to producing content at scale on these 10 platforms that dominate the world. Whether you're in China on Weibo or WeChat, whether VK in the USSR, in Russia, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, on and on and on. I am flabbergasted, stunned by the lack of content being produced by 99% of this audience. On Facebook, over the last half decade, the #1 spenders look like companies like Wish. And if you're unfamiliar with Wish, the shopping app, this is a company that's has gone to a place where it's doing between 6 to 10 billion in revenue, depending on who you listen to. And it's spent 90% of its money on Facebook. When you look at what's happening on Instagram today, whether it's Fashion Nova or Gymshark or brands of that nature, Bang energy drink, they're building their entire businesses on the back of underpriced attention. There are enormous skills that are needed to achieve this, but they're historic skills that have always been had. The ability to produce video content at scale, but have the ability to film all day and understand how to post-produce the video for the platform you're putting into has become a remarkable skill. You know, many of you, how many people here consume my content? Just raise your hands for context. Thank you. So many of you know and have watched as D-Rock has come along this journey with me, filming and producing content. But what he has gone through has been the evolution of wanting to make remarkable films that would take 3, 4, 5 weeks and produce one piece of content, to what he's doing now, which is probably within the last 20 minutes, produce 7 to 25 different pieces of content. Some will just transcribe the words I'm saying now and be written as Facebook or LinkedIn posts. Others will be clipped for 1 minute for an Instagram post. One will be the whole talk as a YouTube and Facebook keynote. The audio of what I'm saying right now will be stripped and will be my daily podcast. We are now living in a post-production, at scale, creative infrastructure that no matter who you are in this room, no matter what your goals are, it is commoditizing almost everything except your ability to actually communicate in this environment. If you take a very big step back and you look at the winners and losers over the last half decade, I would argue that they are wildly mapped to one's ability to understand how to spend time and energy on these 10 to 15 platforms that we actually pay attention to versus the people that have looked backwards and continued to rely on traditional means to communicate. Communication has always dictated everything. You know, coming from this part of the world, I've studied for a long time how communication, by whom and how, has changed absolutely everything. I find it very unlikely that this audience is confused by what I'm saying. When I say it in America, it sometimes misses the mark. But when you say it in other parts of the world that have gone through massive changes completely predicated by communicators and how she or he communicates, there's a deeper sense and knowledge. I believe that this part of the world and many other parts of the world that have gone through this should be much more acute in understanding that it is only communication that is left in the end. And unless you take a step back today and really become strong, smart, and strategic about how you do that, I believe you will leave enormous opportunity on the table. For everybody in this room that is looking to advance their ambitions, whether it's writing, whether it's video, or my favorite thing to talk about, audio, you've got to figure out how you best communicate. For many of you, this is simply a game of taking your phone, hitting record and talking, hit save, and post the audio with a standard picture on any of these platforms. You must be self-aware of how you communicate, and then you must find ways to distribute that. I'm going to leave with a framework of why I believe that audio should be the biggest conversation in this conference. I believe that way too many people make the mistake of trying to catch the next technology wave long before it's the actual technology wave. There's been a remarkable amount of money lost in the last 3 or 4 years around VR and AR, not because it's not coming, but because the number one mistake in this collective room is not paying attention to the actual consumer. We have ideologies around our technology. We are technologists and get excited about future technologies, but very often over the last 20 years, I have watched this ecosystem get way too ahead of itself without realizing that the consumer was not ready. Nobody is home right now sitting in a VR contraption, spending 10 hours a day VRing. What we need to do is be best at what is current. How many people here listen to a podcast? Raise your hand. Raise it high. Look around. Now, put your hands down. How many of those people that just raised their hands were not listening to a podcast just 5 years ago? Raise your hands. That is what I spend my time on. Where are we now? Not 4 years from now, not 4 years ago, right this second. And right this second, we sit in an incredible place with audio. I believe that the number one opportunity for the majority of this room is a very strong strategy around podcasting and audio content, especially because what has emerged in the last 24 months and will continue to grow is AI-driven voice devices in our homes. I believe over the next decade, when you look at how much of what we do today through a phone will be done through audio and voice with a device in our home and office and car, will surprise people quite a bit. There will be no reason to grab your phone in the morning to see what the weather is when you're brushing your teeth and you ask Alexa or Apple or Google or Weibo or whatever it may be what the weather's going to be like. There's not going to be a need to go to Google search to find a lawyer or the best restaurant when your voice device can answer that for you much faster. I will wrap this thesis and everything I've talked about to the highest level of what I think about every day, and I will leave you with this, and I challenge you with this thought. If you believe what I've laid out this morning, it leads to just one very important conclusion, which is if you are not building your brand or your reputation so that it is in people's head, you become incredibly vulnerable. What I don't think people realize is over the last 2 decades, a written or typing infrastructure of internet has allowed people to be salespeople, not just marketing and branding. You've been able to be found if somebody searches for something. You can be the 6th result on Google. You can buy an ad to show up first. When we go away from a typing and visual infrastructure to a voice infrastructure, you must now establish brand. In a world where I speak to a device and ask it for information, you must produce content today to make me aware of your brand so that when I go and order a pizza, I don't say, Alexa, I want a pizza, and then I let Amazon decide who I'm getting the pizza from. I must say, Alexa, I want Pizza Hut. This little example will play true for all of our businesses, all of our ambitions, all of our political, geopolitical, local, business, personal, all of it. I believe that this is the end of an era where visual and written creative can establish so much brand that it preps you for an audio-centric brand warfare. I couldn't be more passionate and push everybody here to dramatically rev up the content they put out in the world, which is to say the most important part, and the single reason I get to sit here. 99% of the content that is put out on these platforms is selfish. I want you to buy my thing. Look at my thing. Look at me. If you look at the people that are winning, it's about their audience. They're putting out content that brings value. This is an enormous struggle for humans and companies and organizations. However, it is the discipline required to actually break through a world where so much content is being produced. The amount of volume that is being produced is extraordinary. Supply and demand of our information is remarkably difficult to break through. It is why, when new platforms emerge, TikTok is not even a blip in this part of the world yet. However, if you look at how Instagram rose, it means that everybody here should create an account and wait to see if it does. If it doesn't, that's fine. You're going to be okay with the 8 hours you wasted. If it does, there's a remarkable return on investment of attention for your ability to communicate. I hope you take this talk and leave this conference and actually start making instead of debating. Thank you.